It's really been a lifelong dream for all three of us to get to a point where we knew we could make a project that had science fiction roots. I think we've tried numerous times. The ideas have come and gone. We've tried to adapt things. We've tried to come up with something that would be somehow, doable. But all in all, for years and years and years, until really the advent of digital video and the availability of, Final Cut and programs like that became consumer programs, as soon as that happened, we realized that we could do it. But previous to that, we just knew it was almost an impossible thing to try to do.
So Christian and I have just finished making our first film, Kill, 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 Kill. And we've decided to do another short film. He tells me he's got an idea for a science fiction film. I love sci-fi. I've always really been into it, along with Chris growing up.
I'd always been around, just keeping abreast on everything, making bit appearances and whatever they were working on. But when sci-fi came up, I said I have to have something to do with this, because we've been doing sci-fi things forever. Joe and I had been making Star Trek movies and building Star Wars props our whole childhood.
I came up with the idea, and I brought it to Joe's attention of just doing a small-scale, atmospheric science fiction piece. And instantly my idea was to do a space version of the Richard Matheson novel, I Am Legend.
He had a script. It was simple. It was easy to do. We happened to have a building that we did some music work in as a rehearsal space, essentially, in an old abandoned factory-esque building. And it was a perfect place to film it, so that was a big challenge out of the way.
So we decided to start shooting midnight, probably on a weekday night. And it was freezing. I remember it was freezing. And we felt half crazed because of the hour, and we start doing our first set. We start lighting a hallway with scoop lights all over the ceiling. And it probably took us 2-3 hours to rig that as Christian got ready in his outfit. When he came out, it looked very dramatic, very cool, and that inspired us. And so we're wiring this whole hallway up, and we're setting camera shots, and we're really just about to hit record, when all of a sudden the guy who runs this practice space comes out and completely shuts us down. He kind of freaked out. He thought, he saw the fake blood on the wall, and he saw all the lighting, all the electricity, and he kind of had a little panic attack. My heart's racing, and we're trying to stop Christian before he comes out in his full costume. And so we have to collect all the stuff under his watchful eye, and we hand truck it all back to our little practice space.
And we filmed in the practice space over a couple of nights. Real, hurried, fast-paced filming session. All sorts of kind of problems with the management of the building, but we worked through that.
Cool. Okay, let's do this.
All right, let's do it. Oh my God, this is recording. I swear on these.
Look at the exit sign.
Quick.
Chris and I shared a lot of the filming responsibilities. Chris is very, very good with the handheld camera, so I tried to give him a lot more of that stuff. Chris is also good with lighting, so he did a lot of that. While, maybe I was working on a piece of set dressing, or like having to make sparks fly out of the fuse box, and things like that. Christian always ends up acting in a lot of our films, basically because it's hard to find people who can really act, and he happens to be good at that. And because he's usually the writer of almost everything we do, it just translates very well in terms of being able to get somebody quickly into the zone of what they have to do and what this character is about and what the film's about. I mean, he gets it. He wrote it.
I thought it's very simple to do. As a matter of fact, I figured I could play Neville because I end up inevitably doing all that, and I could probably also play the creatures because you just throw me in a number of different outfits and costumes, and we'll just keep cutting. We knew let's just minimize what we had in front of us, what we had to deal with, and just try to get something done that looks cool, and maybe would give us the confidence to attempt something a little bit more ambitious, both thematically and production-wise.
So we start lighting it. We get away from the blues. We go with the orangey and some reds, and the light that always jumps out to me on that set is that green light behind his little Buddha statue, because the green for me is War of the Worlds, and it's aliens, I don't know, some reason that's a real sick green works perfect in this kind of sci-fi movie, the hunted guy and the mutant. So we start building the set. Once we've kind of got our lighting scheme, we start peppering in different found objects. We start putting in, mostly in the darkness, are all amps. There's a big Fender Rhodes turned on its side. There's a couple guitar amps, but from behind, so in the darkness they're not instantly recognizable. Joe had a big battery tester or battery jumper. The monitor he looks in to see the approaching ship that Neville looks in is an old Super 8 film viewer, so to look at Super 8 film without using a projector. The pace of the shoot was pretty ridiculous, because by the time you regroup and you built your first set out of scratch, now it's 2 in the morning and people start getting tired because people have to work the next day or have kids the next day, and you start panicking a little bit. Although things, you don't realize how well things are going. The third night, I can only be there half the night because I had to work at 5 a.m. and our friend Paul Souza came to play the mutant in that scene and help out. The exteriors of the base, again, we're very exposed. There's cars coming and going. It's there's other people using this practice space facility. Not to mention that, but the owner is breathing down our neck. Multiple times did we grab the camera. Christian runs out in costume. I'm in a ridiculous gas mask. Joe's got the camera on a roof of a van, and all of a sudden there's a car coming. We have to break everything down, jump into the back of the van, and pretend, we're not there.
So Chris and I were the core. We went down there, we made it, and then it kind of sat for a while. That was when I sort of was getting the idea to do the effects, and I said, I think we can do this.
We shoot what we believe at that time is just a short sci-fi version of I Am Legend. And Joe comes to me and says, what would you think of the idea of doing some effects shots? I mean, we're doing sci-fi. And I said, well, obviously, it would be the most incredible thing on Earth. I mean, it would be a dream come true, but instantly my instinct said it's impossible.
I had, some rough ideas in my head of what I could do, but basically it all hinged on needing a spaceship.
Joe and I spent about probably 5 or even 6 months designing and building the Revelation. The Revelation in real life is about 7 feet long. It probably weighs about, I would say, probably 50 or 60 pounds. And we looked at it kind of like a bigature, essentially a big miniature. There's a couple shots in the episode that I think are probably the things I'm the most proud of, and that is the shot of the Revelation passing by the camera, going into the rear angle shot. That 2-shot combination there, I feel is just really, really exciting, because to us it's really the fulfillment of something we've dreamed about forever, and that is, here we realize we have our own spaceship. We built a spaceship, and there it is.
Everything that ended up in the Revelation came from Home Depot. A lot of the detailing for the Revelation, oddly enough, came from a model kit of the Titanic, which was one of the inspirations Christian used sort of to get an idea of what type of a ship/boat this thing would be.
In the world of Pariah, Revelation would be 939 feet long and 220 feet tall. It would weigh 66,000 tons.
So the Revelation is done. That's a big challenge. We start filming it. I start trying to do these effects, and actually at first it didn't go so well. It seemed, all right, this is going to be a little harder, but I knew we could do it.
Amazing thing is, Joe actually picked up on the effects programs very, very quickly. Within probably a 1-year window, he had gone from we can't do anything to whatever I was to write, he believed we could do. I was given for the first time in my creative life the ability to don't censor your ideas for practicality's sake.
Christian and Joe spent probably a whole summer building spaceship. And then Joe took that footage and slowly integrated into the movie. A lot of other effects shots were decided, I think we can do this too. And as Joe's discovering the technology, Christian and I are obviously thinking, yeah, just go for it. What's the rush? Who cares? There's plenty of other things to stay busy with.
From that point on, I started to develop very seriously a 10-part series that became Pariah. I started developing it episode to episode. The 1942 of Pariah is actually as if it's 100 years advanced. So their 1942 would be our 2042. And in their 1868, this God revealed himself ripped a hole in the sky, stuck his head through, metaphorically, and sent a message to all mankind that this is who I am and this is what I want. And all human resources at that point, the whole thrust of all human, technology, all went towards getting space travel going, getting off Earth into space. So the ships you see in their 1942 would be as if there were spaceships in our 1942. They're like boats in space. All the terminology around the spaceship and the technology of the starships is all nautically based, and it is really represents a society that isn't futuristic, yet is very futuristic. You don't get a whole heck of a lot about Neville in the first episode. I think accidentally, as a design, I think that actually makes sense, and as you see the progression of story, I think actually that's the best way to start the story. When you find Neville at the very beginning of the episode, he is definitely the hunted. He's at the end of his rope, really literally ready to give up. An interesting thing is you see that he has a form of spirituality. He's praying a rosary, but to a Buddhist imagery. So you see a character who is obviously praying for his own life, yet later in the episode you see him hunting and ending somebody else's. So there's a real ambiguity there, character-wise, that definitely is like planting seeds.
So we filmed up on Mount Rattlesnake in New Hampshire, and we were doing a flashback scene of Neville on Earth about 3 weeks before we see him in the beginning of the episode, of this first episode of Pariah. That was a lot of fun for us. Some friends of ours that we work with, that Chris and I work with, Tom and Dave, went up and scouted out these locations for us, which was huge. And then we went up there, Christian, George, and I, and we filmed this flashback scene. I think it was very important to the overall episode because it gives you a chance to see Neville sort of being a little more himself. He's not in a dire situation. Now he's the hunter, and we get to see him interact with another human.
Ivan's played by a very good friend of ours, George Ladera. He's worked with us a number of times. I love to work with George. You can really throw anything at George, and George is very, very adaptable, very, very open-minded, and very, very structured as to what he sees a character being. All I really explained to George was that Ivan is a synthetic. Ivan is one of a kind. Ivan is not a robot. He is 99.9% human. There are two synthetic cells in Ivan's entire body that sets him apart from everyone else. One in his wrist, called his configuration, and one in his brain, called his central port. And that one cell, that central port, is the crux and literally the fulcrum of the entire series in a lot of ways. Really kind of sums up the general idea of everything I would want to say with this show.
Now the movie's moving from 10 minutes to 30 minutes. And, all along we talked about, probably from day one, well, what are we going to do for music? Well, we'll figure it out. What are we going to do for music a month later? We'll figure it out. It opens up with the Pink Floyd song that was decided much later. And what we always knew, the record, there would be some found music on the record. So with GarageBand, I just, started putting together tracks with a sci-fi feel. I started making like a soundtrack to a sci-fi movie without really even thinking of Pariah, because I'd been removed from it from about a year. And Joe instantly was like, well, I think we can just use this for Pariah. So the first 3 songs, I just played to play, and he fitted into Pariah.
In a science fiction piece, having great audio is half the battle, because you can really set the mood and give character to your sets and your environments through the use of just sound. You add hums and beeps, and it gives it life instantly. Alarms going off.
Glorious, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death.
We tried to really do everything ourselves, from the cameras, the lights, the sound, the special effects, the building of the props. I mean, we had to build guns, like laser rifles, all sorts of gas masks. All of that, everything was done by 3 people in that whole movie. Christian, Chris, and I. And I think that says a lot for how hard we're willing to work on this. And I think that says a lot for hopefully how well the film is going to end up coming out.
Christian had the ability to actually write original material, and he had great concepts, and so he put that into something he'd always wanted to do his whole life, like we'd always wanted to, a sci-fi movie. When this came up, came up, I guess, just as a side project, but when we decided to do it, it was actually a real big deal, because it's something we'd wanted to do forever, since, we'd all seen Star Wars when we were 3 years old, I'm sure.
It's exciting to be at a point where we really can almost do anything we want to do. The only real boundary we have is how far we can push our imagination and how hard we can try the best we can to achieve something that's close to what we're developing and what we're envisioning. I have a lot of faith in it. I have a lot of faith that we're going to do something that's interesting, at least. What's interesting about the episode, and what I hope holds for the rest of the series, is that the first episode clearly starts absolutely in hell, and with a little bit of luck and probably a long time and a lot of hard work, hopefully the show inevitably will end up in heaven. And that's the goal, and that's the idea, and that's the overreaching arc of the entire thing. And all we can hope for is that people find something in it that they recognize from other things they've loved, and maybe also see something in it that is new and that is original to us. That's the goal, and hopefully we'll do our best to achieve that. That's the best we can hope for.